Debbie, are you controlling the deck of slides? Somebody's controlling it. I'm not controlling.
Yes, I should be.
Can you scroll it?
I'm wondering why I can't though. Strange.
I'm not getting the next slide.
Okay, there we go.
Okay, so the company has been set up in about 2010, late 2010, and this company is founded by a team of us from one of the wholly owned subsidiary of Lockheed Martin, Savvy Technology. I spent 11 years as the president of Savvy Technology, and today I also happen to be the chairperson of Singapore Smart Nation Technical Committee. Now, the solution that SN is working on, we focus a lot on the IoT solutions involving, GPS, GPRS, SATCOM, RFID, Bluetooth Low Energy, even with narrowband IoT. We late last year, we actually signed an MOU together with Huawei to even try and develop IoT technology based on Huawei's latest NB-IoT and some of their 5G chipset. Now, the solution that SN has built, the part that I'm largely going to share, is also used by various customers of the world. Namely, we have folks using them in Kenya, Tanzania, Thailand, Indonesia, Philippines, and Vietnam. Next slide, please.
I always lose control of the slides. Just give me a second.
Yeah. So as you could see here, the solutions that we offer today, you could largely divide them into 4 sectors. And the one that I'm going to be introducing is called iSpot. iSpot is an acronym for Integrated Security Portal, where we use a combinations of GPS-based devices, security devices, fleet management solution, as well as some active RFID solutions to track temperature, humidity, and sensors within the so-called container itself. Next slide, please. Okay. Now, the challenges for revenue authorities and customs authority around the world, these are largely the sort of the same sort of issues that they face. Port and traffic congestion. A lot of the customs CIQ today are no longer, situated within the port area itself. As you know, most of the port operators, they want the boxes to move as quickly as possible, as they would like to charge as much as possible based on the number of turns. And having customs there demanding for more boxes to be held at the port, it could eventually restrict the movement of cargo within the port area. So the whole idea here is we now allow port operators to apply with customs a new CIQ area that could be 80 kilometers inland. And the whole idea here is how we could use ECTS to then breach out this whole 80 kilometers of the container movement, especially for all the bonded containers. Yeah, let's move on. So the application of electronic cargo tracking systems, I'm going to give you some examples of where we apply this technology. First, in the case study itself, is actually the port of Tanjung Priok. If you have been to Jakarta in Indonesia, and you've been to Tanjung Priok, you understand that that is a very congested port. The way the port area has been designed, one of the biggest problem is the access to the port area. They only have one major road that goes into the port area and only one, so-called railroad. And as a result, even when a container ship has arrived, the time to retrieve and to clear a container from the port of Tanjung Priok could be as much as between 9 to 10 days. And because it takes so long, there's this concept within the Bekasi area where a lot of the manufacturing is happening. Bekasi sits, the part of the Cakkarong dry port that sits in Bekasi is about 80 kilometers inland from Tanjung Priok. So today we've actually used ECTS, the Electronic Cargo Tracking System, to help move a lot of containers bonded containers. Customs, have not cleared them, to a dedicated truck fleet that moves them from at night 10 p.m. to 5 a.m. in the morning. Now, that is really to try and cut down the traffic volume in the day, as well as to make use of a dedicated railroad that brings container from Tanjung Priok to Chakrang Drive. To try and clear a container in CDP, it takes only 3 days instead of usual 10 days. Next example. Now, as you could see, this is an example of some of the so-called container movements. We have gone live with Indonesian Customs on this platform since the year 2011. Couple of key observations of the benefit is that it has actually helped simplify a lot of, achieve a lot of enhancement. Customs clearance was 40% faster. It has actually, allowed the improvement of cargo movement by 30%. Human accuracy has gone up a lot as well. As a result, customs were able to redeploy a lot of the original customs agents that have to fly, around the different locations of the ports to clear container. So instead, those could be now redeployed to do some other work. So we have achieved a lot of benefit out of this system. The second example that we're looking at is really in Thailand. So you will appreciate the fact that there are a lot of free trade zones in the developing countries around Asia. Now, the free trade zones are largely export processing zones, or they are there to provide a lot of the manufacturing for goods to be exported. So as a result, a lot of the raw materials going into the free trade zones will be used to produce the final product, and those products will be exported. So in order to track movement of cargo going in and out of the free trade zone, without the use of electronic cargo tracking system, every shipment going into the free trade zone will have to be declared, for import, and everyone that comes up will have to be exported. So we have customers like Western Digital who has got facilities within many of these free trade zones, having to fly several hundreds of truckloads, all right, in and around maybe 2 to 3 free trade zones. So for them, the electronic cargo tracking system will basically allow them a free movement of cargo in and around these free trade zones without having to declare anything to customs, because customs could see it all on one single platform. Next slide, please. Now, for this effort that we've done, in 2015, we were actually given an award by the World Customs Organization. The award was actually conferred to our partners who provide this service on our behalf in Thailand. Next slide, please. Now, a third example, which is a very good example for hinterland countries, is what we are doing in East Africa. You will appreciate that there are many millions of people living in the hinterlands in East Africa that relies heavily on shipment importations coming in from 3 major ports within the east coast of Africa continent. On the East African region, you have the port of Djibouti, we have the port of Mombasa out of Kenya, we have the port of Dar es Salaam out of Tanzania. These 3 ports are the main importation of containers, right, which will then have to transit through these countries of Kenya, Tanzania, and even all the way through Djibouti and Ethiopia to Uganda, Rwanda, Burundi, South Sudan, and DRC. It used to take a long time for a container to go across Kenya, because they will have to stop by as many as up to more than 10 checkpoints. These checkpoints, you queue overnight to just go through the weigh bridges. Today, with electronic cargo tracking, customs is able to see from the platform directly the movement of this container, and none of this container would need to stop at any of these checkpoints. So it's green lane all the way from the port itself to the release point at the border point of Malabar between Kenya and Uganda. So this is an example where we have lots and lots of movement of containers on a daily basis, reporting onto a live platform, which is viewed by customs from their control room. Next slide, please. So,
DK, when you, if you don't mind, can I ask a question?
Yeah, please.
So you're actually tracking these containers. Is there some agreement that you have with with the intermediate countries. So it sounds like what you're able to do is to take a container from Mombasa to Rwanda without opening it or seeing any duty until it gets to Rwanda. And is there something to do with the tracking that helps you negotiate with Kenya around being able to do that, or are those agreements that have been negotiated in the past?
That's a very good question. So, like in the case of Kenya, Kenya Revenue Authority, open up what we call an electronic cargo tracking license, ECTS license. And as vendors, we will all have to apply to this license in order to provide a service that is so-called endorsed by the customs. And customs basically employ this or deploy this stick and carrot sort of like a regime. If you're not going to be on the ECTS scheme, where you pay extra money to an ECTS vendor to help track this container and provide the visibility to customs, you will need to stop at those checkpoints that we talk about. So you can go by it's similar to toll roads. You pay toll, you go on expressway. You don't pay toll, then expect to get all the traffic lights, that goes on the normal road. So this is a pretty similar systems that they've adopted. So you have your choice, right? You could choose to go on the expressway, or you could choose to go by the good old way. But because the good old way is so punitive, it even requires that every one of these transshipment cargo pay a deposit, right, before they are able to be shipped from the port to the release point, right, at the border point. So it is very hefty, is a very big amount. And to get back this refund after the container crosses the country will also take a long time. So you appreciate that most of these customers of ours and logistic company, transportation company would prefer to use ECTS and will not stick to the old way anymore.
Got it. That's helpful. Do you track every container? Do you have a device in every container that is reporting back, or are the containers just read as they go through various checkpoints?
There's a GPS device on every container, and every container is reporting by itself live. And on top of that, there are fuel tankers. There are various forms of imports that are going into Uganda. So the three main types, you could look at them as containers, you could look at them as bulk tankers. There are also cars. I'm going to show you some examples of photographs later on.
Okay.
So all the solutions are actually, what we track, right? So we have on the transshipment truck, each one of these, we actually feed one of these IVM. We call it, in-vehicle monitoring system. And the IVMs could read an eye sensors at the back. And at all time, you will maintain contact with the eye sensor. It knows, exactly what is happening to the eye sensor. So this could be one container that the truck is towing or pulling, or this could be two containers, right? 2 20-footers. And we are also tracking a lot of transit cars. We're tracking fuel tanker, container, and bulk tankers. So the system in itself is actually a very nicely layered architectural platform. We have the hardware layer, the comms layer, the IoT, the middleware layer, and the application layer. So there are what we call the master devices versus the sensor devices. And sensors could be deployed on the outside of the container for security, as well as on the inside of the container to provide the reading of the environmental sensors like temperature and humidity. Go next. And the reason why customs love this system, this electronic cargo tracking system, is that it is very easy to use. I mean, there's really no need for any sort of handheld or association other than the fact that you create a trip on a platform. You then assign, one of the iScout or one of our sensors to that trip. And thereafter, the trip and the platform, the device and the platform will talk to one another, and they know exactly, how to interpret the information in the data. So we could actually get a container, and a container could be set up as little as like within 2 minutes, and it could be on its way. Yeah, and any violations will then be shown exactly on the platform. Go next. So I'm going to give you some other examples. So there's been lots of other questions to say that if they were wanting to track this container way and beyond, where there's no GSM in the middle of the desert, where they are going to go into Congo or DRC, we could also provide a satellite failover solution, whereby the minute the devices detect there's no GSM signal, and in the case of any violation, they will actually use the satellite itself to be a means of communication. Go next. So the platform has multiple modules. It is a very full flavor solution whereby you could have device management, trip management, geofencing corridor. You can set up route, alert, all kind of workflow engine, which is also the reason why we could very quickly, bring on many other customs with different workflow and requirements on the same platform. Go next. So as an example, you look at the ECTS solution, we can create the geo zones for intermediary, checkpoint, arrival, departure solutions and information. Go next. You could create many corridors and routes, stitch them all together. So the route from Mombasa all the way to Malabar is about 800 over kilometers, and those are stitched up by multiple corridors. Go next. And after you've done that, the solution, the way the customs will use this system is that they could now solve a lot of their 5% issues and problem by looking at just one dashboard. Instead of spending 80% of the effort there on resolving the 5% issue. So on the dashboard, we present to them exactly situations where containers are missing heartbeat, leaving without authorization, arriving late, has departed from the corridor, or the most important one is been breached and there's a security alert. So for each one of these, by clicking onto the actual so-called either the container, the trip, you brings them straight into next slide, right? The location, the whereabout it is, and it can also offer you all the key detail information of who's the agent ID, who's actually the owner of the truck and owner of the cargo. So within one single dashboard, they can see it. So this is an example of Vietnam Customs testing out in Hanoi. Go next. So you could also see corridor deviation immediately when a truck decides to just leave the road, leave the corridor. So we could actually customize the corridor to match up with the width of the road, and you can build different corridor width, different corridor, alternate corridors, so that you can provide them with more than one route to go on. Go next. And this is a very interesting example. This is an example of how we're tracking dragon fruits from the south of Vietnam all the way into China. 1,800 kilometers, we track it for GPS location, we track it for, if you see in this slide, the blue color line is actually humidity. The red color line is actually temperature. So we are putting, GPS locations, we're putting security, we're putting temperature, we're putting humidity all into one single chart. And you're gonna see it and monitor it live, right? Throughout the whole 1,800 kilometers. Go next. And the device is also intrinsically safe, meaning to say that even in the presence of methane or hydrogen, it does not explode. Now, this is a very important cert for us because without this cert, we cannot work with all the oil majors. Go next. So this is an example of how you see our device being attached before leaving CDP. This is an example that is in Jakarta, in the port of Tanjung Priok and Bekasi. So the device will also work with cameras, so that we also capture camera footages on the platform.
So CK, can I another question?
Yes, please.
So you're tracking. When you say you're tracking temperature on that trip, you're tracking the temperature of the cargo, or you're tracking the temperature of the container as it travels. So how close to the packaging are you getting?
Well, as close as you want it. You could put one, you could put six, all inside the cargo. So you could put, one in the rail, one in the middle, one at the back. We could give you all three readings at one go.
Got it. And are you, when you communicate, one of the devices is communicating through satellite or G3 or whatever, and the others are communicating to that device, or are all of the devices independently able to communicate location?
No, the sensors that are inside the container will relay to the device on the outside. And the real device on the outside is called a master device. And the master device will be collecting the information and communicating with the platform.
And if the master device loses connectivity, does that effectively invalidate the agreement, or can it store locally for a while and then transmit?
It can. So in the case that it has gone, below the deck on the container ship, and it's being covered by containers, lots and lots of containers. The devices are very smart. You can enter into what we call a C mode, and it detects that it could be traveling on the ocean, because we know the last departure locations, the last reading before it gets covered up by all containers. So it stops. It will stay in a condition, and the minute it wakes up, it will repeat, it will go back to its usual mode. And if there's any sort of data that is accumulated, along the way, that because of GSM, bad spot, you're not reading them and you're not sending them out, it will actually accumulate the data until, the next point that you can send, you send everything out.
That's interesting. Is there any communication between containers, or at the moment you're probably there are not very many containers in a shipment that have these devices on them. Is that correct? Or are you getting to be fairly prevalent in containers?
Oh, we're tracking at any one time several tens of thousands of containers now. Why am I saying that? Because we are doing a lot of transshipment tracking. I'm not talking about international end-to-end. We're talking about tracking from port to border point and vice versa, as well as from port to another inland container depot. So in such closed-loop use cases, each device could do as many as up to about 4 trips a day. I mean, in some short journey, if the container terminal is like 80 kilometers from the port, the same device could be tracking up to 4 containers in a day. So many containers are tracked onto a live platform, and we're collecting a lot of container information.
Excellent, thank you.
All right. So at the end of it, there's actually a pretty strong AI model that we are building on top of it. So you could see that a large part of our clients are actually public sector. We have Ministry of Defense in Singapore. And because of the public sector's use of the technology, the private sectors are coming on. Yeah, next slide. So examples of cargoes that are going to be tracked, I mean, largely we have military cargo, hazmat cargo, and a lot of these high duty item cargo. Now, the vehicle tracking, this is a real photograph of a Kenyan customs officers locking one of our devices at the bottom of a car seat. So this could go at the bottom of a car seat, this could go at the back of a car boot, below the car tire, locked to the chassis of the body. And the car will be tracked all the way, because these are supposed to be imported cars going from Mombasa to Uganda. And the fact that the road conditions are no good, so they couldn't use car carriages, each one of these transshipment cars are actually driven by a driver. And you appreciate that the driver is driving a car that is worth probably 5 years of his salary. So a lot of this theft happens because the driver decided that, well, I'm not going to bring the car to the border point. And that's the reason why the use of such a device will help prevent a lot of this theft, as well as customs have recovered a lot of cars from the use of our devices. Yeah. Next. So in summary, I mean, it's a technology that's been proven and tested by many customs and for many years. Very effective, and from a price point, it is very effective as well, because we brought tracking to as low as $2 US per day, as low as that. With satellite failover, it can even go as low as like $250 a day. And a lot of these solutions can be so quickly deployed, and customs could easily run trials on such platform within days, which is quite different from before. So that's the reason why we've been quite successful in this part of the world. Go next. So well, you can see from this map, we're quite well covered in Asia. We're starting to hit Brazil and Mexico. We are still empty in the US. Clearly, there's an area that we hope to expand into, but we're relatively well covered in and around Asia. Right? So I'm open to questions, and that's all I have for slides.
Thanks, CK. That's great. Questions for CK?
Hey, everyone. Sorry. I was just wondering, how are you making sure the information is secure? What security or encryption methods are you including in your solution?
So the devices are sending encrypted data to the middleware platform. And the middleware platform, and the best part is we do not draw associations of the actual trip details on the devices itself. Even if a device were to be compromised, none of the data will make any sense to anyone. And the middleware in itself does a bit of the so-called stitching together of various information pieces before it gets presented to the application layer. And at each layer, we apply a different encryption algorithm to different aspects of it, including the workflow at the back end. It is not known to somebody who's outside the system. So you could be even seeing the data at the middleware when it's been decrypted, but it doesn't make sense to anyone as well. I don't know if that answers your question. And with regards to the hosting of this system on cloud, the two ways to do it. One is on premise. If the customer so decide that this should sit in their premise as a closed system, we do that. But if they do trust the cloud solution, we will offer them a cloud-based solution, and we can go on any public cloud or private cloud.
Are you implementing some sort of blockchain architecture?
We are already onto DLT. We're already onto what we call an IDMS platform for immutable documents management system. All these DLT structures that we're putting is really keeping records of the transaction. But what is also very interesting is that the information coming in from the devices are also being blockchain and kept in a DLT structure. But not all implementations are on DLT. I have to qualify that. Only the latest of our trade financing platforms are on DLT.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Other questions?
Well, this probably seems silly, but the thought that comes to mind is tracking lost luggage. There's so many pieces of luggage moving around that gets lost, and I'm curious if you said it can be as inexpensive as $2.50 a day to do tracking. Is this something that individuals would want to use in addition to a corporate environment, or?
Yeah, I'm not sure about check. Well, we have two solutions to track luggages. One, as you could see, actually the company has got 4 segments of solution. What I presented to you is only 1 out of the 4. We have another segment that we're using a BLE solution, a Bluetooth Low Energy device, whereby the in-vehicle unit or as well as the GPS device in itself has got BLE components to talk to BLE sensors. And we build those BLE sensors as well. So one way is to have BLE deployed, and because BLE, you could actually put it into the luggage and it could fly. When it arrives, you could try and use a handphone to find them. You can use a mobile solution itself to help with sorting out the devices. The other aspect is that we also have a GPS device small enough, which we were helping one of the logistic company in Brazil built. Now there are lots of cargo. So they were looking at this for air freight usage. They want it small enough, the device will sleep, but when the plane lands, will start beaconing. So that in the event that there's a tamper or there is a pilferage, they will know exactly where's the last known location. We have also started to build devices with anti-tampering as well as the anti so-called GPS jamming and GSM jamming component, because we make it pick up periodically. So we do have solutions for that. Yes.
Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome.
It sounds like there's a fair amount of sort of customizing a route here that you know, that you have to work with source and destination to ensure that the right information is tracked and that it's tracked either in the cloud or on a private network. Or is that true that you have to do a lot of sort of customizing for each route, or is there some sort of international standard for this kind of service?
Well, that's a very good question. I mean, when we first designed this ECTS platform in 2010, there weren't any sort of standards in the world for electronic cargo tracking. And we literally went out there and built this whole ECTS with a workflow engine. And today, the same ECTS workflow engine is used by various customs without much customization. As a matter of fact, it is a bit of tweaking the workflow, meaning to say some customs want to see more, some they want to see less, some may want to add 1 or 2 more fields. But you will also appreciate that we're not working on so-called customs to customs, but we are working largely in transit domestic cargo tracking. So if Vietnam Customs is interested in tracking cargoes from the south of Vietnam, 1,800 kilometers to the border point near to China, now that whole stretch is still under the jurisdiction of one custom, which is Vietnam Customs. So they can decide on what the workflow should be. And therefore, one platform will serve every container tracking in Vietnam. Same goes for Philippines, same goes for Thailand, same goes for Indonesia, because once the customs sign off on that, every single container movement between the port of Tanjung Priok to Chakarang Dry Port is on the same platform. And case in point, same with Kenya. Now, the solution is being monitored by customs directly, but the actual workflow is also being approved by them. Henceforth, every container that would like to transit through all of Kenya would have to be on this platform and complying to the same workflow.
That's very helpful.
Okay, all right.
Do you think there's a reason why you haven't had more penetration in the United States yet?
Well, I spent 11 years with Savvy. I was very well, attuned, and I was involved with standards like the ISO 18185. I was working on the, various TCs that has got to do with the CTPAT. I knew that the US is still figuring out what exactly would be the customs as well as the requirements. So for us, we felt that there were a lot of low-hanging fruit in and around the world. And as soon as the US is a bit clearer on the overall requirements and what need to be done for compliance, we'll be more than happy to tweak our ECTS solution to comply.
Got it.
Yeah.
Other questions for CK?
CK, I feel the need to identify myself as working for Cisco, and you said you were a Huawei partner, and I'm wondering if there's anything about the system that is specific to the relationship with the Huawei network, or can it be used across any type of network?
Oh, it can be used across any type of network. The only reason why Huawei reach out to us is Huawei's been looking around the world, and they found us to be the only electronic cargo tracking solutions that they want to work with. And they love the fact that we own the platform, we own the middleware, we own the hardware. And so what the Huawei is trying to work with us is really to start prototyping the latest of the 4.5G and 5G chipset so that they can now be IoT ready on our platform and device.
Got it. Okay.
So having said that, we will work with any 5G device as long as 3GPP compliance. That is going to that's going to work as well.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you. Any other questions for CK? It's pretty late there, so we're going to let him break away a little early here. So any other questions for CK before we draw a close here? CK, this was really helpful. Thank you very much.
You're welcome, everyone, and thank you for staying on the call. All right.
No, this is great.
Very interesting. Yeah.
Great. Thank you. Bye.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thanks. I just thought I would put in a quick advert here for the GCTC conferences coming up at the end of June. So June 20th through 22nd, there is the Global Tech Jam. The Wednesday is going to be the full GCTC. Sok Woo Ri will coordinate discussions of both the action clusters and the super clusters. And then there are 2 days of transportation. Actually, it's broader than transportation now. There'll be a series of keynote speeches and then breakout sessions. So I encourage you to go look at globaltechjam.com. It's globaltechjam.com, all one word, except for the .com, and register if you can, and come to the event. I think it'll be really good. There'll be a lot more Smart City content there. Anyhow, thanks everyone for joining us today. Hopefully that was a useful meeting, and we'll talk to you again next month. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks everyone.